Thank you again so much for your time. Our panelists, we have a great dynamic panelist today. We're gonna go get started. Even though Dr. Liow is not here, we'll just go ahead and just, jump into it. Because I know our panels are kind of short today, so we just want to make sure we get questions addressed and ask the audience if they have any questions as well at the very end. I just want to remind people, if you can please, if you're not part of the panel, go on mute. And then, like I said, at the very end, we'll have time for Q&A. So I just wanted to give each panelist some time to introduce themselves and just tell them, tell the audience about where they're from and the work that they're working on. And then we'll just jump into some of our questions. So Dr. Ebuh, I would love for you to go first.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be part of this panel. My name is Dr. Joel Ebuh. I'm the CEO of Gandolin Research. We're a multi-therapeutic site located in Southeast Texas with an emphasis on CNS and neurodegenerative diseases. And we're just excited. I'm just excited to participate in this conference with GAP.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ebuh. All right, Dr. Lovie.
First, I want to apologize. I am not a tech person. I tried my best to turn every notification off before I got on this, and now everything is going off. So sorry, guys. So I'm Dr. Lovie Negrin. I'm a clinical research nurse practitioner. I am also the CEO and founder sub-I here at Randomize Now Medical Research Centers. We are based out of Atlanta, Georgia. We're an embedded site in about 3 different private practices, kind of the outskirts of Atlanta. And then our central Atlanta location is in the College Park area on Main Street. So we're actually new to College Park. We've had our standalone clinic now for about 4 or 5 months. So we're here in the city and getting established and really being a part of the community that we really want to service. So that's who we are. Our therapeutic areas are mostly internal medicine. Nephrologies are like number 1. And we're expanding. We now have colorectal surgery, have an amazing research study that we've been able to recruit for there. And so that's who we are. We're super excited. We have about an 80% enrollment of African Americans in our studies, and we take pride in those numbers. And so thank you again for having us today.
Thank you so much. I would take pride in those numbers as well. That's awesome. That's great. Thank you so much. So we're just going to go ahead and just jump into some questions for you. So Dr. Ebuh, how does your site, Gandolin, integrate diversity into its hiring and training processes for site staff? And what has been the feedback from trial participants?
Well, thanks for the question. So integrating diversity into our hiring and training process is just essential for a site like Gandolin Research. That's because it's part of our mission to improve therapeutic equity and efficacy across all studies that we touch. And so what we do is we set a goal for our staff diversity to reflect not just the diversity of our cohort or our community, but also our enrollment goal. So we want to make sure that those two are matching or exceeding the enrollment goals we want on average for across all of our studies. And that's one of the ways we do that. And the feedback has been very positive. It's not always verbal, but there are different metrics and KPIs that we use to track the effectiveness of that process, which we'll talk about.
That's great. That's awesome. It's all about being intentional, right? And we appreciate all the efforts you do, especially at Gandolin. So thank you so much for sharing that. So Dr. Lovie, I would say, Randomize Now has been a leader in promoting diversity in clinical trials. What strategies have you found most effective in ensuring diverse representation within site staff, and how do these impact participant outcomes?
Thank you for that question. So we have partnered with places such as like Morehouse School of Medicine. They have a CRC training program, really neat. My intro to that program was that my company joined their community partner network, which is kind of a bridge between the academic PIs and the community PIs. And so in that, they, one thing we talked about was staffing for these sites. They're like, oh, we have a CRC program. So I was able to learn about that. So I have actually employed 2 of their coordinators and they have been some of our best coordinators, right? And so diversity is something huge with Morehouse. I mean, that's something that it's one of the pillars to make sure that their student body is representative of the community that they serve, right? And so with that being said, we've been able able to diversify our staff here at Randomize now because of that. Actually hired one of our first American Indian women and one Nigerian woman that works now on our team. And so just has been really great. And so a different language, diversity of language and cultural barriers that we normally would face, we don't really face those with a lot of communities now. And so it's been pretty great.
That's great. That's awesome. Hats off to you, right? For making those efforts, again, to be intentional, right? And hire the diverse staff that you have. So that's great. Kudos to you both, I tell you.
Thank you.
Yes, no problem. Dr. Ebuh, another question for you. What role do partnerships and collaborations play in achieving diversity among clinical research site staff? And can you share any successful examples?
Yes, it's essential to have partnerships and collaborations to find the right clinical research site staff. And this is all part of being intentional. We've partnered with universities, like Lovie said. Lamar University is a local university here where we've partnered to set up an internship program, and that way we could create a pipeline of new research, new individuals with interest in clinical research. Within the industry, we've also partnered with Black Women in Clinical Research. We've been a sponsor since its inception, and we've also been able to identify valuable team members through that organization. We believe your collaborations kind of reflect your intentions, so we want to make sure that we have the right collaborations to support our mission.
That's great. And I love how you both have emphasized the value of partnering with local universities, HBCUs, local, colleges, because that's so important, right? And building those relationships and creating that pipeline, right, of diverse potential clinical research personnel. So thank you so much for sharing that. I would ask the same question to you, Dr. Lovie. What role do partnerships and collaborations play in achieving diversity among clinical research site staff? And can you share any successful examples?
Yeah, definitely piggybacking off of Dr. Ebuh's experience of Black women in clinical research. I mean, literally, when you want to employ a population of people effective in the Black community, if you're connected to that organization, it's the first thing you think of, right? Actually, Danielle, the founder of that organization, has helped actually develop that CRC program at Morehouse. She's also played a part in being a part of other smaller community colleges for the curriculums that they now have. And so, to Dr. Ebuh's point as well, is supporting. He said he has supported those organizations financially. And so that gives them the cushion to be able to do what they do. And so that organizations like myself can benefit and be able to take part in the services that they provide. So honestly, that's been like the most productive route that we've had as far as true partnerships that, reach back out and they try to meet us where we are. So.
That's great. Yes. And thank you for highlighting Black women in clinical research, because we had the opportunity to attend the annual conference this past weekend, which was great. A great gathering of, Black women in clinical research. So awesome. Thank you. It's important to establish those partnerships and collaborations. So thank you so much for sharing. Dr. Ebuh, I know you kind of alluded to this question, so we're going to revisit it. We're going to visit it now. How can we measure the impact of diverse site staff on clinical trial outcomes? And are there metrics currently in place to track this?
So this is an interesting question, because no patient has ever left our clinic and said, man, I really like the diversity in your clinic. Nobody says that, right? So you have to really try and develop sensitive metrics and KPIs to see how effective you are. And one way we do it is participant feedback in general, just satisfaction surveys. We also look at our enrollment metrics to see how well and how intentional we're reflecting our mission in our enrollment metrics. But I think the most critical way is tracking retention by demographics. So that way we can identify any disparities in our processes or any shortfalls from our end throughout the course of the study, and then improve either for that study or take those lessons learned for the next opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Ebuh. That's great. Yes. And tracking diversity, right? And the demographics too in real time as well is like very helpful in a clinical trial. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I see Dr. Liow has joined us. Hello, Dr. Liow. Are you?
Hello, yes, good morning. Aloha, can you hear me?
Yes, aloha. We can hear you, and we know it's early in Hawaii.
Yes, aloha and good morning to you from the Aloha State in Hawaii. And I'm Corey Kai Liow. I am the director of the Memory Center here in Hawaii. And so nice to join your meeting. And thank you for allowing us to be part of this wonderful conference. And thank you for organizing this conference. As you know, Hawaii is a most diverse state in the U.S. We are one of 6 majority states. So I'm a little bit ashamed to say that it wasn't very hard to be to be diverse in what we do. We truly privileged to be serving this population, special population, especially the Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders. But one thing that I would like to share, if I could share, is making sure that your staff members obviously culturally sensitive. We do have a wonderful staff here at the Memory Center. We have about 60 staff members that works here in our clinical trials. But one of the things that I have found helpful in working with the diverse population serving the minority is making sure that our staff members are culturally sensitive. We are very diverse, so I try to put the staff members. I know I have the right staff members on the bus, but I try to put them in the right seat. Some staff members are more aloha than others, so they are really embracing the patient and talking to them and getting the uncle and aunties to, taking the chickens, the mangoes, whatever they have. Some staff members are more reserved. They maybe they're from the mainland. They're more, more distance. So one thing that I could share maybe is making sure that your staff members, putting them in the right, not only in the right bus, but in the right seats in the buses, leverage their strength. And I think you will be very successful in making sure that we are serving the underserved. Yeah, thank you so much, Tamiko, for letting me share this small little thing from our place in Hawaii. Aloha.
Thank you. Aloha. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Liow. That's very helpful, right? And we love that you're a part of this because we tend to not hear from Hawaii, right? And what's going on there. So thank you so much for sharing that perspective and feedback. It's very helpful. I do have some more questions for you, Dr. Liow, but I'll come back to you. But Dr. Lovie, I would ask to you as well, how can we measure the impact of diverse site staff on clinical trial outcomes? Are there metrics currently in place to track this?
Yeah, it's definitely. So I feel like it's still developing. It's a developing sector for us, right? We don't, like Dr. Ebuh was saying, and really just adding to his points. I think the only thing I would add different is, measuring patient satisfaction. Again, like he said, people don't leave the clinic and go, oh my God, this is great, and y'all are diverse and all that stuff, right? But patient satisfaction in terms of them coming into our clinic, they're seeing how we're treating them, right? Seeing that we look like them. And, they may or may not qualify for a trial, but because of the experience that they're having here, they're going back home and they're talking to their families about it and saying, hey, at minimum, go and learn about what I learned about today, right? We have this one genetic test that we're doing for kidney failure in people of African descent. And, a piece of that is really testing patients and lineage, right? So testing family members. And so they have to come in and feel comfortable. So I think that's one way that we measure, some of the metrics that we measure internally. Additionally, I made a note of retention rate. All right. So you may come in and, engage in the first visit, you get your patient stipend, you get patients that come in and kind of looking around like, okay, I'm gonna do this first visit. Well, let me see if I'm actually gonna come back, and so we have a 98% compliance rate to medications, compliant rates to e-diaries. Again, a lot of our systems that we put in place as well assist with that, but also the experience that the patients have on site and with our staff drives that. So I think internally, that's how we're measuring it. I think that one one day, this type of data is going to be very rich for us, right? And so we save all this information. I encourage sites, especially my size, that data is going to drive the future of research, right? So if we have this data and show the things that help with these metrics, we'll have that to share along with feasibilities. I kind of put in now in the feasibilities. I'm surprised we aren't, this is 2024. We talk about diversity, and a lot of the sponsors and CROs haven't really, put some of these metrics on the feasibilities. But when they have an open comment section, I'm talking percentages. I'm talking about satisfaction rate. I'm talking about compliance rates, right? So I believe, like I said, we're getting there, but slowly but surely. But the fact that we're talking about it, it starts to drive that change.
That's awesome. Yes. And kudos for you, 98% compliance. That's awesome. That's great. That's awesome. Yes. And like you said, we need to have more of these conversations and put this into action, right? More so, especially like you say on the feasibility. So amazing. Great. I would pose that to you, Dr. Liow. How can we measure the impact of diverse site staff and clinical trial outcomes? And are there metrics currently in place to track this at your site?
Yeah, I apologize. I came in a little bit late in the meeting, so I wasn't privy to what was previously discussed. Frankly, it wasn't a measure that anything that we really use. You guys are really the first organization that we work with that was really geared towards that. Although I have to say that a lot of the research that we're doing right now with the medical students really geared towards polling the data for the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders, the Asian Americans, looking at barriers to clinical trial recruitment, some of the things that Dr. Lovie discussed, including transportation. We are a state with island, so sometimes people say, why don't they just drive here? They don't understand that Big Island is 400 miles away from Oahu. You can't even paddle here, even if you paddle, So there are some logistics that we try to plan for while working in clinical trials. One of the biggest barrier that we have really encountered is really with lack of education, lack of information, especially from the family members. So I don't know what other sites are for us, in particularly when the patient come in to discuss whatever it is, possibly a clinical trial. They often bring their ohana with them, their uncle, their aunties, their cousins, mom, dad, their son, daughter-in-law, and you can see that our waiting room is packed. And one thing is, if anything, one of the things that I found most helpful is making sure that the family members have the buy-in, have the stake, when explaining the trial to them. I think once you get the buy-in of the family members, you earn the trust. I think it's all about trust. I think it really makes it, and the compliance is there, the retention rate is there, the completion is there. So unfortunately, we didn't need to use too much metrics and measurements. It was sort of organic that what we do. But I'm so glad that you guys are really challenging us to really form some kind of metrics and template, and we're really looking forward to working with you guys and be part of this wonderful program.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Liow. And we are excited to work with you as well. And what you resonated in what you say, it's so important, right? And we just have to understand too, do a better understanding of what you all are experiencing too in Hawaii, right? And I appreciate you sharing your perspective. It's great. Thank you. I have another question for the panel. And I will start with you, Dr. Ebuh. How do you see the role of diverse site staff evolving in the next 5 to 10 years, especially in light of increasing awareness around equity in clinical research?
It's my opinion that as the regulatory landscape evolves and there's continued emphasis on diversity, that will lead to enhanced training and increase the motivation to address cultural competence on the site level. And I think sponsors will assign a higher premium or value to sites that look like ours, because they want to meet that enrollment goal, specifically in Alzheimer's research, where you have African Americans 1.5 to 2 times as likely to have Alzheimer's. But if you look at the Alzheimer's enrollments in some studies, it's like 2% enrollment. Who are you making the drug for? At the end of the day, we have to be able to ensure that our mission and strategies all align. And so I really do believe that if the regulatory landscape encourages more emphasis on diversity, this will necessitate the focus on having sites with increased diverse staffing and just increasing diversity of the team on a site level.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, and as we continue, right, in those 5 to 10 years, like you said, clinical, pharma will appreciate and will want those sites that are more diverse and more reflective of the communities they're trying to enroll into their studies. So great points that you have raised. Thank you so much. And Dr. Lovie, I would say to ask you the same thing. How do you see the role of diverse site staff evolving in the next 5 to 10 years, especially in light of increasing awareness around equity in clinical research?
Got it. I would say maybe starting, on the pharma and the, bigger company side, right? Not taking away, affirmative action changed so much. I spoke about that on Saturday. But really being more intentional and just making it normal and not like a fad, like we talked about on Saturday of DEI, and it's big because of COVID, and let's get more Black and brown people into every department, or let's just create a department for them. So then, but now when it starts with budget cuts, we're going to cut those departments out, and then, now we are back to the inclusive workforces, right? So if we could, make it a normal thing to give everybody fair opportunity, but also taking, putting it in the forefront that we do need to diversify every department within these companies, then now you have somebody able to advocate for us on the site side when now they're doing site selection. How many times I have had, I know we got a little bit of time here, but how many times I've had CRAs kind of pull me off to the side and say like, hey, I'm a little, blinded to how this works in your community, and I'm trying to, tell my team, but my team doesn't look like you either. So can you, help me in that piece? But imagine if her team, had some Hawaiian people on there, had, African people, had African American people. So, at the end of the day, it's a conversation for another day. But I think it's going to be a trickle down effect. We just have to realize it's not hard to make that happen. But you collaborate with these organizations that have the people that need to be employed, that are well qualified for it. And we'll start to see it on the site side more.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. I love that. Thank you so much. That's amazing. Yes, and Dr. Liow, same question for you. How do you see the role of diverse staff evolving in the next 5 to 10 years, especially in light of increasing awareness around equity in clinical research?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things that I want to add to what Dr. Lovie and Dr. Ebuh really added great points is creating a culture. I think what you, as the PI, creating a culture is so important, because Hawaii is so diverse. We have people coming in from the mainland, but people coming in from Harvard, UCLA, and then they're coming to this little island state. And so one of the things that we are very careful is maintaining your culture of what your local culture, so the first thing that we do, for example, we just had a neurologist that joined us from Yale in July. One of the things that we do is take him down to Chinatown to have dim sum with the rest of the team, and really break him down, break down all the barriers, and tell him, shed the tie, don't wear tie anymore, this is the local thing, and go ahead, use your fingers, go for the chicken feet, and so one of the things that I feel really important as the PI is maintaining the culture, and making sure that your culture is really geared towards your local population, and guard them carefully, because you're going to have people just in the just what we do. There's people come and go, the people that come in and then they go to medical school and then they leave. So be sure to maintain a good culture for your team. That invest in your team, take them out to eat, honor their birthday, honor their anniversary, really take good care of your team, because your team will really take good care of you. So hopefully this is helpful. Yeah.
That's very helpful, because, go ahead. Go, Dr. Ebuh. Were you gonna? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I In addition to what Dr. Liow said, I just wanted to just kind of add a little bit of nuance here for the audience members. With site staffing and diversity in site staff, you really don't have to reflect your community population. So in our instance, our city is 49% African American, but our county just dilutes that to 26% African Americans. But our staffing at Gandolin is 94% minority. So you can exceed your community the diversity of your community so that you can be that intentional when a patient walks in. Nobody's going to say anything, but they're going to notice that that is intentional.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. This is awesome information that you all are sharing. And like you were saying too, Dr. Liow, that it's not only about retention of the participant, but you also have to think about your staff, retaining your staff, right? And what it takes to retain them to be able to do the work that we all do, right? And want to do in improving representation in our trials. So thank you so much. This has been great. And I know we want to open it up for question and answer, but I just want to leave it also to our panelists. Is there any last minute remarks you want to make before we open it up to question and answer that we may have not been able to address, or you're like, oh, I want to make this point so people know before we go on to our next panel?
I just want to thank Justin Ford for putting this together, this wonderful conference, Tamiko and your team. I think what you guys are doing is very much needed. I've been in this field doing clinical trials for almost 30 years, and this is just wonderful to see that there's something like this. I wish there was something like this when I was a young investigator. So I think it is about time. Please do well. We want to support you. We want you to succeed because what you do is so important to clinical trials in general. So I'm just so glad and so honored and so privileged to be part of this panel.
Thank you, Dr. Liow. Dr. Ebuh or Dr. Lovie?
I think it was really all great. I always tell people when you leave these panel discussions, leave with some action, some action amongst yourself. It doesn't have to be like a huge action. I go back and email somebody, but even it's just a thought process, right? What can I bring to the table moving forward? But if you are in a position of power, in a position of authority or, influence, think about some of the things that we said and how can you assist sites like ourselves that are really, to me, honestly, doing the bulk of the work. Like, I feel like, the future of research, diversity in research, metrics is going to come from sites our size, right? And so I'm just excited to be a part of that. And I thank Gap for including me in this today as well, because it was a surprise. So I appreciate you. appreciate you all, because I'm not in the Alzheimer's space, but we have dealt with some memory studies, and Dr. Ebuh is encouraging me all the time to get more involved. So thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Lovie. And what we feel is we can learn from other therapeutic areas, right? What solutions that you all might have will be able to apply to neurodegenerative diseases. So we love learning from you all. So thank you. Dr. Ebuh, did you?
I just want to take this opportunity to thank GAP and all of the participants and organizers to shed a spotlight on this. Because it's important, especially with neurodegenerative diseases and Alzheimer's, to increase the participation of African Americans and other minority groups, Latinos and other minority groups as well. It's important for us to make sure that we have an atmosphere where patients and participants are coming in and feeling safe, and they can trust the information that's given, and not have to lean back to underlying biases, which may deprive them and all of us from making therapeutic advancements. So I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to implementing some of the strategies that I've heard today and integrating that in our sites.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ebuh. Great discussion today. I'm just so excited. I want to also open it up to question and answer from the audience. Please don't be shy. We can use the chat box, or if you are feel encouraged, you can also come off of a mute and ask your question. But we'll just give it a few minutes because this has been a great discussion, and we have a great esteemed panelists that are open to listening to your questions and hopefully answering them, but let's just give it a few minutes. But this has been a great discussion. Thank you so much. Let's give it and please don't be shy if you have a question for Dr. Ebuh, Dr. Lovie, or Dr. Liow.
And just to someone's point over in the chat, and please stop me if someone has a question. I just was kind of rambling on here. But someone mentioned about HBCUs, partner with HBCUs and HSIs to elevate those communities and create a pipeline, tracking enrollment, retention, satisfaction metrics to measure success. So yeah, giving some feedback there. But I will say, like, for example, with the HBCUs, they have pipelines, and they're working with some of the sponsors to make sure, because a lot of them are, right, you know, intentionally built and situated within underserved communities, mostly Black communities, right? So you have, you know, these this amazing campus that sits amongst some very economically disadvantaged areas, especially here in Atlanta. The AU Center sits really in the middle of, it's changing over here now, but you know, 10 years ago, it was a very poverty-stricken area, right? And so, you know, a piece of that, of, you know, imagine having had this research part back then where we could engage more people kind of in that socioeconomic class. So I think it's just to their point, it is very pivotal to partner with the HBCUs as well, because they're in areas like this.
Thank you, Dr. Lovie. And the area you're in, Atlanta, is such a rich area, right? Of so many HBCUs, which makes it.
Yeah, now, and of course, you know, it's a area that's being revamped, and so it looks a lot different than it did even just 10 years ago, you know. So, but yeah,
Awesome.
Thanks to the Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yeah. But yes, and I also want to remind attendees to please, if you're interested in learning more about our panelists, please visit the Whova app where we have the bios. Their bios are uploaded as well if you want to learn more about them. And I see, thank you panelists for putting your information in the chat. If you have any other questions or if you want to contact them. So thank you so much. Anybody, any questions? Thank you so much for thank you for sharing your contact information.
Does anybody like to know how high the waves are on the North Shore today?
Yes,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, share, Dr. Lee.
It's about 5 to 7 feet, and we need all the tourists that we can get. So please pack your bags and book your flights and come over to the island. We are open.
Awesome.
You're gonna make me come out there. We might as well just take a trip.
I know.
You should. How about having the next conference over in Honolulu?
Yes.
Hey.
Yes. Hey, and Dr. Liow, we're recording this, so yes, definitely.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
They say less. I would just, if I can just add, just before we leave, because I know we probably want to leave some time to be able to go to our next panel. If there's just one piece of advice you could give to someone who is new to clinical research, you know, they're entering the field, you know, at a level, it doesn't matter which level, but who is entering into the field, entry level, right? Is there one piece of advice that you could share with them? What would it be?
Dr. Ebuh, you're burning over there. Go ahead and tell
I know, I see. I saw Dr. Ebuh. I was like,
what I tell my team, because a lot of times we'll hire individuals who are highly skilled but and translatable experience. And what I tell them is, it takes 3 months to feel like you know what's going on, and 6 months to feel like you're good. And so be patient with the process. Research is not normal. It's a purpose-built industry. And so don't feel like, hey, especially on the site, like, don't feel like, okay, I'm always lost, I'm always asking questions. Just keep asking questions, keep learning. It will get better in a very short amount of time. So don't quit or feel like you're not doing as well. It takes a little bit to understand the landscape, but once you understand it, you'll take off.
That's great. Yes, thank you. Great advice. All right, Dr. Lovie, Would you?
Yeah, just say, I say hop around until you find your niche. Just so much to do. I feel like, coordinators come in intro level, and I am so transparent with my staff, probably the sentiments of Dr. Liow as well. But I am like, I know for a lot of you all coming in here, it's kind of like a part of your journey, and you're going to journey on through. So let's go ahead and put that on the table, because I get a lot of people, again, just now coming into the industry, and then they come in and they go, whatever. So this is my thing, right? We do like this we do quarterly evaluations, and we sit down, and one of the questions I ask is, where do you see yourself 6 months from now? And I promise you, we actually record these talks, and my HR department comes back and goes, it changes. And because you leave that so open for them, it allows them to go to these conferences. So I'm surprised none of them are on today. They love to just come in and hear different thought leaders, but be transparent with me, because we're so interconnected, and I can help you get to that next level. I actually have one CRC, she probably can hear me, but she's here today. And one of her things is that she came in thinking that she wanted to be a career coordinator, but then realized she really wants to go into the analysis part of it. Like, she wants to go and actually, and that was awesome. And she feels open about telling that to us in those quarterly meetings. So I think that's what I would say, is just come through, find your niche, and be okay with not being okay in the position where you are forever.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dr. Lovie. Yes, this is awesome advice. And just know we are recording this, so we will be sharing this. If there is someone who wasn't able to attend, you can share it with them. Dr. Liow, any piece of advice?
No, thank you. So well said, Dr. Lovie and Dr. Ebuh. And we have a wonderful staff members, and I always tell them this is truly the best time to be doing what you're doing. There's so much opportunity, so much potential, but I always connect it with, but there's going to be a lot of hard work. You reap what you sow, and if you don't like where you end up, you should really look at what you have sown in the past. If you don't like where you are, if you don't like what your bank account is, if you don't like what your credit card debt is, you really need to look at what have you been doing. So it's just very simple. Be sure to sow into what you do every day. Do the best you can. Whether it's a small task, like Dr. Lovie said, it may not be a task that you actually want to do. Even the task, maybe if even just pushing a patient in a wheelchair out to the front, be the best wheelchair pusher that you can. Do it with excellence. I can assure you that life is just very simple. You reap what you sow. Do the very best you can. Go the extra mile for somebody. Be good to people. You will surely reap the reward that is chasing you down. So thank you so much again for the good advice and everybody gave.
Thank you, Dr. Liow. That's the advice we can use in our everyday life. So thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I really want to thank our esteemed panelists today. What an awesome discussion. I am so excited we recorded it, so we will be able to see this again, because you all shared great nuggets and just great information for us to consider, right? As we work to improve and diversify the pipeline of clinical research staff, as well as clinical research participants. So thank you so much. Thank you, Justin. Yes, I'm going to shout out to Justin for, like you said, putting the panel together. I appreciate his help with this. So thank you all. And I will give you a few minutes to go on to the next. It's a table talk, or a talk with Councilwoman Melissa Robinson from the Black Healthcare Coalition. So thank you all, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.